What is up, fine folks? It's episode 9, double tapped. I'm Jay.
What is this intro?
What does it matter? We're having fun today.
I'm Tanner. Hi.
Yeah. Let's have our sunspots.
Where did this guy go from?
What? We got a good energy today. We just got back from Buffalo Wild Wings.
We did.
I had my favorite mango habanero, even though maybe that's what's working me up. It's so spicy. Sunspun Shandy by Ryan Geist.
Say that 5 times fast.
Sunspun Shandy. I can't do it.
What a hot intro.
This is great.
All right.
Let's pop these bad boys.
Yeah. Nice.
So both of our, I assume you've never had this.
No.
I just saw it and thought it looked interesting. And we're both sort of Ryan Geist stans.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Okay, so it is described as a shandy with grapefruit and orange juice. No such thing as too much fun in the sun. A bright squeeze of orange and grapefruit juice into a light-bodied golden ale delivers Sunspun Shandy, a brilliant blast of citrus sunshine.
It is pretty sunshiny.
Oh, that's pleasant. I really like the cans.
Oh, yeah.
If you're watching the video version, Ryan Geist, hard to beat their cans. They're so good.
Sort of starts more citrusy and ends more beery.
Yeah.
That's sort of the vibe I get.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
All right. Tanner, what you been playing this past week?
I've played a little bit of Returnal. I'm slowly catching up. Finally, I had played a little bit the last couple of weeks, but had been progressively more busy. Same kind of story this week, but I did make a little bit of progress. I beat the second boss.
Sorry, I'm still in a laughy mood.
Oh, you're fine.
Something tells me later this is just going to go off the rails. We got a lot to discuss.
We do. But yeah, I played quite a bit of Returnal this week. I've also played a lot of NBA 2K. I finally made the jump for it. It was $40 on sale, physical, unfortunately, but I don't have any other physical discs, so it's just staying in my PlayStation, so that's fine. My player's been doing well. His nickname's the Garbage Man, and that's pretty fun. And then I've just been so into that game. It's the perfect podcast.
Did you name him after you proper this time, or did you actually go back to Cash Banks?
Cash Banks is retired for now. Okay. I did name him after myself proper. Yeah.
Fair. I've been playing nothing but Returnal still, pretty much. I've reached the point where it is a good podcast game because now I'm actually sort of grinding out for the platinum, which is becoming increasingly a grind. So to sort of talk about this in a little bit of a nebulous way, every biome in Returnal has a certain set of collectibles. Yeah. But since it's a roguelite, all the rooms are randomized. Right. You never know what you're going to get, and you never know what... So there's one biome where there's one collectible that I'm missing. It is the last biome of the game. So having to run through the other biomes to get there, look all around for this thing, promptly die, just to have to run back all the way back through there, all in the pursuit of this one particular thing is very frustrating.
That's a heartbreaker.
And considering it's the last one, I'm doing the ladder biome surveys first, and then working my way backwards so it'll get a little easier.
Yeah, it's smart.
And since I was already closer, I guess along the way I had accidentally accrued more collectibles in those biomes anyway, just by looking around. Sure. So I'm trying to knock that out. Status at this point, I have 2 of the several biomes completed. Yeah, thank you for not spoiling. I'm hoping, because I got quite a bit done. So I've seen 3 biomes now in Returnal. I got quite a bit done in my last couple of runs. So I beat the second boss, whose name is Ixiom. Yes. Very cool boss fight. I kind of unlocked a couple things mentally with that game that have helped tremendously. 2 of which being, it's better to watch your player than watch the enemy. Yeah, that is one that I've finally completely committed to, and it really helped with that fight. And then the second one being, I never aim down sight now. Yeah, that was another big thing. That's kind of pointless. Yeah, coming from other shooters where it's better to get headshots and all that. That's something that I'm used to, and then now it's just I hardly ever ADS. Yeah. So that has been a nice improvement, and so I made it. Not only did I make it through the second biome, I also made it quite a bit of the ways. I think, right? Yeah, a significant portion. You made it basically to the lead up to the third boss. Right. Yeah, you can kind of, once you've experienced a couple biomes, you can kind of feel that. At least to my experience right now, there have been sort of an objective in a biome that opens a shortcut, and then the shortcut goes to the boss, and they're each about the same length from each other. So I knew about where I was at. I made it into the lead up to the boss twice in the third biome already.
So I'm hoping that I've had sort of a mental breakthrough and will be there shortly.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to mainly just to see you face the forthcoming bosses and the couple of story turns that are coming your way. Tanner, we have an E3 points update.
I don't know what that was. So I got very excited.
The first official thing that has come down that at all aligns with either of our E3 predictions.
Yes.
The DualShock, or I keep calling them the DualShocks.
It'll turn eventually.
Yeah. DualSense, we are getting 2 new colors.
Yes, red and black.
I predicted this, although I predicted that it would happen at the show.
Right.
So now we are here to hash out.
We need to discuss how much credit you get.
Yeah.
First of all, we need to discuss how decimal we're getting with our points. Do we want to keep it in like sort of main fractions, half, quarter, that kind of thing?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay.
And this prediction was pretty... Well, I guess I predicted at least 2 new colors.
Yes, and it was 2.
It was 2. So that part is... I get full credit for that part. So it's pretty much just deciding how much I get docked for it not being at the show.
I feel like it's a half point.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah. So I think we should set the precedent now that if anything, because if you're watching this, I think the audio version was out before that was announced, but the video version, because it takes so long to export, and I got very busy last week, that didn't drop until after the announcement was made, but we recorded way in advance. You can always look, if you're curious, in YouTube or on the podcast thing. It'll say when we recorded the episode. Yeah. So we recorded it the weekend before. So even though Jay predicted that it would happen, I think he deserves some credit for that, but maybe not full credit since it wasn't actually an E3 thing.
No, I definitely think it should get a dock for that.
Yeah, it would not be a surprise to me if several things like this happen on the lead up to E3.
Yeah, which... Hopefully at least one happens, because I actually did predict that one thing actually would happen before, but
that's true.
We'll see how that comes down.
Yeah.
And there have been rumors swirling. We've sent some things back and forth, but until it's confirmed, we're not even going to talk about it.
Yep.
And it's a thought that I don't even want to venture to think about.
Don't want to publicize, yeah.
But let's move on to the rest of the news from
Okay.
this past week. The biggest one, and this is also not confirmed, although it has been somewhat confirmed by a reputable source.
Okay.
And that is Jeff Grubb.
Yes.
Tweeted that Starfield is going to be an Xbox PC exclusive.
Yeah.
Which, if this is true, which we are presuming it is,
yeah,
that flies in the face of at least one of my predictions.
Right.
We're going to wait for an official announcement.
Right, of course, yeah.
But what do you think about this? What's your take?
I'm a little surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
If it's true, obviously, I'm gonna talk about it as if it is, true.
And I do think this still leaves a window open for it to be a timed exclusive. But
sure.
You never know.
Yeah. But it is a little surprising because Xbox, they've seemed a lot more lax on having other games on their consoles, right? The thing that I think was most easily sort of comparable to this was with Outer Worlds, where Obsidian was working on that game before Xbox bought them, and they basically said, okay, you're fine to keep making that and go on all consoles, but after that everything becomes exclusive, whatever. So Outer Worlds came out on PlayStation. I was assuming something would happen like that with Bethesda up until a point, and I guess Starfield might be that point, because obviously Deathloop is a Bethesda game, but it's a PlayStation timed exclusive, and they are honoring that. But it's a little surprising. I still don't know how I feel about it yet, because I don't know anything about Starfield yet.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if that's a big deal or not a big deal at all. It really depends on the quality of the game. But, I mean, it seems like we were kind of two minds when the Xbox Bethesda thing came out. We've had a podcast long enough that we got to cover that. And one of the thoughts was you don't buy Bethesda without making their shit exclusive. Seems like that may be the route they're going. So
yeah, and it's still an interesting, question moving forward of how much does this actually bolster Xbox sales when it still is coming to PC.
Right.
That being said, we'll talk. There's another story coming up here in a little bit that I think continues to make the argument for not owning an Xbox harder to make. But I'm with you that I was surprised because it was presumably pretty obvious that PlayStation development of this game had to have been decently far along.
Sure, yeah.
So it's like, did they just scrap that entirely? Is it still out there in the ether and will come around eventually?
Yeah.
It remains to be seen.
I think, just to continue that a little bit, I think, too, games have gotten easier or quicker to make cross-platform.
So because basically now, to my understanding, my limited understanding, I'm not claiming to be a dev or anything, but my limited understanding is that Xbox and PlayStation both run off the same architecture, which basically means if you make a game for one, obviously there are things you have to change, like controller layout and stuff like that, but the main idea of it should run decently well on both. This is not like the PS3 days when
cell processor or whatever it was.
Good old Orbis. PS3 had its own architecture. If you don't know what that means, basically the computer structure that the console is built on. Now Xbox and PlayStation are both built basically like a PC. So that's why it makes it so easy to port now, which is good. But that could also mean if they were working side by side on development, it may not be that much of a loss of time to take away the PlayStation arm of it.
True.
But hopefully, I mean, obviously, we both love exclusives because they can be so quality, but also I'm of the mind frame, at least, that I would rather everybody be able to play everything. So hopefully that comes out everywhere at some point, but if not, I understand the business side of it.
And I will say a little bit too that, you know, I've talked about my excessive levels of hype for whenever the Elder Scrolls 6 comes back around.
Yeah.
But you know, so the last Bethesda big RPG that I played was Fallout 4.
Right.
Which didn't blow me away.
Right.
And pretty much everything now that comes out of Bethesda that isn't Elder Scrolls, I'm going in a little bit trepidatious. Not thinking it's going to be bad.
No, yeah.
But going in saying, I'm not expecting this to blow me away.
Right.
So if it's a loss that I don't get to play it, I'm not that disappointed.
Yeah.
Unless it comes out and starts, you know, tens are dropping left and right. Then I'll be like, dang it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about the other Xbox story while we're at it.
Okay.
Xbox has added 74 new games to their FPS Boost system.
Okay, what is this?
This is like just one of the functionalities for the Series X that boosts...
Oh, sorry, like frame rate, not first-person shooter, my bad.
Yeah, like can double the frame rate of a lot of these games.
Wow.
And it's 74 new games. And I want this exact thing on PlayStation so bad. So bad. And again, like I said, continues to make the value proposition of the Xbox go way up.
Yeah. So. I mean, they're smart. Kudos to Xbox because they seem to, what they lack in, at least right now, first party IP, they have made up for with features and, you know, other things that do end up making a console great. Like, you know, a lot of people look back at the 360 era now, and one of the things that people love about the 360 when it first came out was Xbox Live. It's not one particular game. It's just that service and the ability to download things like Splosion Man and like really early Xbox arcade titles, Braid and things like that. So it's really interesting to see them, I don't want to say outthink everybody else because who knows, Sony might be working on this as well. Also, it may just be more a priority with Xbox than it is with PlayStation, but I really dig a lot of the moves Xbox is making, this being one of them, because Xbox is seemingly doing as much as they can to sort of replicate the PC gaming experience on console. And a lot of people, I know especially toward the end of last generation, were migrating to PC mostly for boosted frame rates and better resolution. So
it's seeming like maybe their long-term plan was, hey, we have our exclusive games, that's all well and good. We have Halo, we have Gears, that sort of thing. But we're not going to put as much priority into broadening our internal development of exclusives. We're going to focus on our hardware capabilities, and then we're just going to go acquire someone and make them our de facto new exclusive arm.
Yeah,
which is what obviously
which is not a bad idea.
No, and I think it's starting to pay dividends.
Yeah.
Let's focus on one other developer. This is not really a story we can dive too deep into. It's just a long-term business strategy, but one that I don't like.
Okay.
Ubisoft has been pretty much said they are shifting their focus away from single player and leaning into free to play. So I don't like that.
No, this feels like the exact same story we heard in like 2014.
Sure.
Which was,
you could say this about the entire industry.
Right.
So
I think the correct me if I'm wrong, but like the headline, because this was coming from a like a partners meeting, right? Or like the whatever they call those business calls. Yeah. Where they meet with all like the stockholders.
Shareholders
meeting. Thank you. So it was during one of those where they said that they are going to look into making more free to play AAA free-to-play games, I think is how they phrased it.
Pretty much.
Which I guess we've not seen many likes of. You could argue that Fortnite's that, but
Apex.
Yeah, Apex is another one. But I feel like this is sort of a dated thing to do it now.
Yeah.
Like 2021 does not seem the time to go full free-to-play, especially with all these new consoles coming out and people just starving for any experience, and they will pay for it. I wonder if this is made by these somewhat lackluster sales, at least rumored, of like Watch Dogs Legion. Because I don't know how well that game sold exactly, but the overall feeling toward that game was underwhelming.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they look at things like that and go, well, if we had made Watch Dogs free to play, could we have made more money back on whales, on microtransactions, or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know that they could have, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm just looking for something they could do that's like novel in the free-to-play space.
Yeah.
At this point, your battle royale shooters are pretty much burned out, or not burned out, but you're not getting into that space and succeeding at this point.
You have your core.
Like, what? I'm just curious what is left to do, and we're not developers. Maybe they have some harebrained idea that's going to set the world on fire. We don't really know. But until such time, I'm approaching this with sadness that this could potentially be replacing a pretty good every other year exclusive, or not exclusive, but an IP coming out of Ubisoft.
And like we both have fondness for certain Ubisoft IP. And
especially historically. Yeah.
I just don't know if I want to see the next big Assassin's Creed game be free to play, or the next big Far Cry game, or whatever. It just sounds free to play, just the term free to play has such a stigma about it to people like you and me, where we know what that means from a gameplay standpoint. Like, it's weird to me because coming back to my playing of 2K, there are microtransactions all over that game.
Yeah.
And people complain about it, and I get it, but I think most sports games are following that model now. That being said, that was still, you can get everything you can get in that game by just grinding if you want. And I buy those games to have something to just like no brain grind and just like relax. So for me, it's perfect. And I don't know why they can't, if you really want microtransactions that badly, and maybe this is a bad PR move, but like, what's the difference between having grindable currency or whatever, which they already had, by the way. Assassin's Creed had it. I know some of their other properties have had like tokens and things they can buy, you know, weapons with, or skins or whatever. I don't understand why you wouldn't just keep going down that road as opposed to going full free to play. I don't really get it.
Yeah, and the implication behind the business model of free to play, that the point of this game is that they want to suck you into the point where you're going to continually
you pay them,
dive into these microtransactions over time. And have I certainly poured more value into a game like Fortnite than I would pay for a single player AAA game? Absolutely. I've probably spent double at least over time on cosmetics in Fortnite.
Sure.
I haven't done that in a long time though. I got out. It's like getting out of a multi-level marketing scheme. I'm like, you can't get me anymore.
Right. It seems like everybody has maybe one or two of those experiences, but I don't know very many people who have several, right? Like, I don't know that I've ever really had the full microtransaction thing. Maybe when I was little, and like Little Big Planet 2 with all the skins, I loved those, and that was like a Christmas present and stuff. But even then, like Rocket League, I'll buy the Battle Pass sometimes, but it's very like hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think, if everybody starts going free to play, I don't think those same type of whale people who spend a ton of money in your game are going to exist across the board for every game. So,
all right, Tanner, we shall move along. Am I waiting? Is there fat lip happening? Is there fat lip?
Oh, are we done?
We're done with the news.
Oh, here it is.
I was like waiting for them to kick in the door.
This is the podcast within a podcast. This is crazy shit I found on ResetEra. It's a bit of a weird one today, mainly because I think this isn't the craziest stuff we've covered.
Okay.
But it's an interesting question that people have taken a weird way. So the initial post, which I don't think is that bad, are there any games that you've played many hours of but don't love? This is from Todd Gonzalez. Was just scrolling through my game library on PS5 and was shocked to see that I've played over 100 hours of Fortnite. I think the game can be a decent way to pass the time, and I have friends that play it, but that's about it for me. I wouldn't call it a game I really love or anything. Just something to throw on if I'm bored or not sure what else to play. Do you have any games that you've played a lot but you don't necessarily love, and why did you sink so many hours into them? Someone said, probably Dota 2, thousands of hours before I quit. I think it's been overall a slight negative on my life. It's like, how do you get to that point?
Thousands of hours. Wow.
This one's from Highlander CZ. Sadly, I poured 500 hours into Fallout 4. I don't even know why, because I kind of hate it. And it's like, get out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
There's no shame.
No, I don't understand this. And listen, I've gotten to points, other people have pointed to things like Overwatch and those kind of games, which I agree with. I really loved Overwatch for a time, but even some of those comments were like, I was really into Overwatch, and then I just kept playing, and I lost love for it, but I just kept playing, right? I get that. But this sort of, it was a negative on my life, and I played thousands of hours of it, is kind of bizarre to me.
Well, there's something to be said about if there is something that you're trying to attain at the end of this thousands of hours journey.
Yeah.
And the initial example, because I was like, there have been plenty of platinum grinds that weren't necessarily enjoyable.
That's true.
But the platinum is at least there. And even then at the end, you can get the platinum and think, that may not have been worth it, but at least I have this.
Yeah. And like,
you know,
normally, at least for me, I don't platinum grind something if the promise of it at the beginning isn't fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have soured to a degree on games I've platinum, but normally if I go for the platinum, that means I'm enjoying the experience enough that, yeah, they're like Rayman Legends is mine, right? Yeah. Where I'd never ended up hating Rayman Legends, even though I am frustrated with one of the trophies, right? I still like that game outside of those weird online trophies. But
yeah, and when you look at like a trophy list, once you decide whether you're going to go for the platinum or not, and you see a trophy is like, win 4,000 online matches.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Like, never mind.
Yeah. Another one for you.
Okay.
This is from user DOSFool, whose picture is the one guy from Seinfeld.
Kramer?
No.
Which one? What describe the person?
The balding glasses guy. Jason Alexander is his real name. Why can't I think of his character's name?
Oh my goodness! Hold on.
We're
pausing this podcast.
My brain just keeps saying Jerry. That's Seinfeld.
We're not moving on until we think of his name.
I know. It's not Newman. It's not Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh my goodness!
Why can't I think? His real name is Jason Alexander. I know his real name.
Holy crap! And we're both Seinfeld enthusiasts.
You more than I, but I've seen a few episodes. Why can I not think?
True.
Why can I not think of his name?
Jerry, Elaine,
Kramer, Jason Alexander.
Crap!
What is happening to us?
You can look it up if you have to. This is really bothering me.
No, we're gonna get this.
Oh my lord!
I'm gonna show.
His name is. Oh, yeah,
showing the video version that showed up way better than I expected.
Holy crap!
Why can I not think of? It's the fourth member of the Seinfeld crew.
It's the second biggest character in the show. His name is.
Oh no!
I think because Curb Your Enthusiasm is sort of about his sort of character in a nebulous way.
Yeah.
Oh, this is horrible.
All right, I'm gonna have to look at it.
All right, this is. I'm disappointed in us.
I am too. Newman's a character that we didn't.
Yeah, I forget. You didn't watch a ton of Seinfeld.
No,
I didn't either. But like what I've seen is just very, very, very clever.
Oh my god!
What is it?
It's George
Costanza.
Yeah.
That was the weird thing.
I couldn't get past Jerry.
I was zeroing in on the first name when it was the last name that was the distinguisher.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway,
whatever.
His picture is of George Costanza, DOSFool. Again, another situation where the post itself isn't bad, but the comments might be. In your eyes, games that were one step away from perfection. Lately, I've been thinking about the titles that should have been 100% slam dunks in terms of quality, but were one crucial element away from landing in the classic territory. If you have any examples, I'd like to read about this as well. Now, I should set that he set sort of a precedent with two games that I've heard of. I forget the first game, but the second game was like Crosscode, which are sort of smaller titles that might have been great had they had one pretty like big element changed. Sure. One of the replies from Peter Sjostrand, Sjostrand, Resident Evil 4. Would argue that's already a classic. Sure. People love that game.
People do.
The one that this blew my mind. The one thing I always felt missing was a mode that randomized some of the enemy placements and maybe a couple of item placements as well. The reason being that I played through the game so many times that it isn't very challenging anymore. Playing it and suddenly having something like, say, Dr. Salvador, I don't know who that is, but show up somewhere you wouldn't expect would pretty much make the game endlessly replayable for me. So you've played the game so many times that you found this weird niche complaint to have about it. Like there are, and I know people do this for Resident Evil games. A buddy of mine, J-Rock, streams them. They do randomizers. So like Link to the Past is one of the games that gets randomized a lot, where they just place everything in different spots. Just play one of those. Just go find an RE4 randomizer. I don't know why that's RE4's fault.
That's a strange complaint.
Breath of the Wild would be one of my favorite games ever if the game had diversity and shrine aesthetics and some kind of camera quick turn system. That's really what's breaking Breath of the Wild for you? Press one of the shoulder buttons to automatically turn the camera 90 degrees or toward you or something, instead of having to take your thumb off the face buttons to the right analog stick. What?
Why? Like,
why is that
what is the utility
that makes it not perfect?
What is the utility in Breath of the Wild specifically? Like that would have.
I don't know. It's not a quick combat
Which is
game.
funny because the one game that I can instantly think of that has that mechanic is
The Last of Us. And you never use it. Yeah, exactly. And this last person, Molten, says, Breath of the Wild, if it didn't have those stupid motion control puzzles, which there are like 2, and they're shrines, and they're not hard.
Yeah.
ResetEra is a fun place, man.
It is. They got some interesting characters over there.
Yeah.
Tanner, let's move on to our big topic of the day.
All right.
And in honor of a sports phenomenon that we quite enjoy, where 2 unique scores happen, we're calling this segment the first ever Scoreagami.
Beautiful. Should we tell them what Scoreagami is?
So a Scoreagami.
I love this.
It's typically we consider it in football.
Yeah. There's a Twitter that's at NFL Scoreagami, I think.
Yeah. Is when a final score happens in a game that has never occurred before. Like there's a list of like scores that you can go look up. Like I don't think there's ever been like a 29 to 26 or something random that. And if you know football scoring, you know that is those are weird numbers.
Right. So the reason Scoreagami works in this is an aside, but it's fun. Yeah. The reason Scoreagami, which I think was popularized by John Boyes of SB Nation, that's where I first heard of it, and he basically said, the way he explained it was like, NFL score specifically, you can normally score in football in an increment of 2, 3, 6, 7. That's basically it. Well, 2, 3, and 6, and then 1 for extra points.
Yeah.
But they all kind of fit together as Lego blocks, right? So certain orientations of those blocks are more common than others. And so because of the set nature of NFL scoring, you can only score so many points in different ways. You can't have, like, a 0 to 1 game is impossible.
Correct.
So there are certain impossibilities mathematically, and there's certain very improbabilities, and Scoreagami happens when one of those improbabilities happens.
Now, that being said, that is a way more convoluted explanation for the segment that we are going to do, which is just we're going to give our scores for some games.
Yes. So
and Tanner went the extra mile.
Yeah. So you asked me to assemble a list of games we both played. Now, the easiest way I thought of doing this was to go to our PlayStation trophies. PlayStation has a feature where you can compare trophies between 2 people. So I pulled basically any game where we had nearly equivalent trophy levels or games that I know we've both played.
Sure.
And this was just a good reminder of ones that we've both played. Now I have 73 games.
Yeah.
We can kind of fly through these if you want, or we can take our time. Doesn't really matter.
Some of these will definitely be flown through.
Sure. I have given mine all scores already, by the way.
Okay.
All on the 100-point scale, as you love.
I do.
And these are sorted not by time when we played them, which is how they initially sorted, but rather alphabetically.
Okay.
So, the first game that you and I both played some time of. Also, we should clarify, this is just PlayStation games.
We'll get into a few other games at the end, probably.
Yeah, Jay has some extra ones, but obviously, going back, it's harder to tell like what we both played as kids and how that affects our scores. So this is everything that has had trophies, since we both mainly play on PlayStation.
And I will say, sort of the purpose that I wanted to give behind this segment is how we mentioned in a prior episode. We want to sort of give you out there an idea of how we interpret the quality of games.
Right.
So if we ever recommend a game, you could look at something like this and say, oh, they like this game, not that game.
Yeah.
And frame our opinions in a better light.
Yeah, that was the reason we pitched it, because we obviously preach you should follow certain people who you agree with more often than not.
Yeah.
So we're giving you a basis of work review-wise
exactly.
to review yourself. So the first up, do you want to guess what's first alphabetically?
I'm guessing it just starts with the letter A, like the word. Like just the word A?
No.
Oh, then I don't know.
Apex Legends.
Oh, I don't have enough, I don't think, of a time spent in that game. Although it looks cool, plays well, I couldn't score it personally.
I gave Apex an 8.5.
Okay.
I would have probably given it lower score if not for this sort of Renaissance winter that I had with it.
Sure.
And really dug deep into some of its systems. I think it's one of the best battle royales made. Okay. Number 2, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Okay, now we're talking. Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is.
Because I definitely think it's hard to retroactively score some of these games, because like I would have given Assassin's Creed 2 like a 9 back in the day.
Right.
But I think over time I would say it has been lessened slightly.
Sure.
Which makes me then think something like Black Flag, my gut is pulling me towards like an 8.2.
Okay.
Something like that.
I gave it a 7.5.
Okay.
The reason being, as I was going, I was realizing that I sort of did a gut check reaction of just like putting a score in. And as I went through, I was like, man, I just have a lot of 8s.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went through and was like, which game's better? Which game stuck with me more?
That's true.
I really like Black Flag. I tried to kind of rate this both on what I would give it if I were writing for like an IGN or whatever, like a critical side and my personal side to it. So there are games that I love here that aren't the greatest games, so I would normally score them a little bit lower. I like Black Flag a lot. Looking back at it with things like Odyssey now,
yeah,
Odyssey just does everything Black Flag does better, in my opinion.
Except sea shanties.
That's true. The sea shanties were great.
And that's what I was thinking about. There's a unique charm to Black Flag
sure.
that a lot of the other Assassin's Creed just don't have.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I liked Odyssey more, so.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, a trilogy of games you and I both love. First up, Batman Arkham Asylum.
Oh, God. Okay. Asylum is going to have to be... Oh, that's tough.
It is.
And again, I had mentioned that I've sort of retroactively soured on the Arkham games as well.
Yeah, I will say, I am grading them as I'm grading them today. It's hard to go back and say what I would have given them when I first played them.
I think Arkham Asylum is like an 8.6.
I gave it an 8.4.
Yeah, okay.
Because the next game in the list, Arkham City, I think does everything Asylum did better.
Yeah, I think City is like an even 9. Is what I
really? I gave it a 9.7.
Really?
I think it's one of the best superhero games ever.
Wow.
So for what it was going for, that was another part of my scoring, was like, for what you're going for, how well did you execute?
Yeah.
I really like City a lot. I've grown more on City as the clear and away best game of that trilogy.
I agree with that.
And because of that, I wanted to give it something like really high. 9.7 might be a little high, but I really like that game a lot.
Which then leads into logically,
Arkham Knight.
Oh, baby. That's a toughie.
I gave this game a 7.5.
Okay.
I think a lot about it is of 8 quality. Something that I would really recommend, but thinking about it and thinking about that tank section and thinking about the story point that was obvious, that ended up being obvious.
Such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, there are several. That's a good way to describe that game overall.
Yeah.
There are several missed opportunities. And I think it's the worst of the series.
I think it's...
Of that trilogy, sorry.
Marginally the worst. Because it is technically...
Oh, it's beautiful.
Far and away like an upgrade over both of the prior twos, really.
Yes, agreed.
So I think I would lean somewhere... I think that I'll come down as like an 8.4.
Okay.
I'm going to respect it for what it is and some of the things that it did. But, God, could have been such a better game.
I know. They had everything there.
Yeah.
Okay, a game that you might not think about anymore that we were both into for a bit, Battlefield 1.
Oh.
Yeah. I gave this an 8.
Yeah.
Simply because the single player has not stuck with me at all.
No, me neither.
But there was a wonderful aspect of that game, which was just how beautiful the game was. One of the best looking early PS4 games, or whenever that came out. Best looking PS4 games at the time it came out. Playing it multiplayer with you and Andrew was an amazing time. Yeah. I love playing so much of that game multiplayer. And it really has a feel that another game that I haven't replicated that experience of sort of the slower, more sort of thinking man's shooter, I guess, as opposed to Call of Duty, which is a lot more run and gun. Like I really loved the strategic side of that game
and like planning your loadout and knowing where to go and going to a sniper's nest or wherever. I enjoyed that a lot.
I think that this is a game that for me was primarily enjoyable only because I was able to play it with you guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if I were judging it just as a game on its own merits that I were just playing, I think I would give it like a 7.8. Okay. Something like that.
Sure.
A good, competent shooter, cool historical period, but
yeah,
not one that I would sit down and enjoy frequently on my own.
Right. That makes sense. Now a game you do enjoy.
Oh, really?
Bioshock.
Oh, wow. Now here's where this conversation was going to have to happen.
Okay.
In that, what constitutes a 10?
Yeah. So I gave it a 10.
Yeah.
For a couple of different reasons. One, it has sort of the, you know, the acumen behind it. It has sort of a legend to it now of the people who played it then, and people always bring it up in the greatest games conversations. And it was so nice for that to all feel justified playing it for the first time with the remasters. And I was so pleasantly surprised. You would think there wouldn't be anything surprising about Bioshock playing it, you know, 10 years after it came out or whatever. But I was so surprised with so many turns of that game. Granted, the final boss fight isn't great.
Yeah, that is really my only knock on the game.
But that is the only knock. Like, the environment's great, the music is great, the feeling of that game, the story, the writing, the combat. I love everything about that game.
Yeah, there's not much to pick apart there. And I'm going to say that a 10 is not necessarily a perfect game.
Sure.
But it does something or some things at such a unique and high level or in an impactful way that I'm compelled to give it the highest score. And I think I have to give that to Bioshock as well. I have to give it a 10. I love that game so much.
Next up, Bioshock 2.
Now.
I think we're going to differ a little bit on this one.
It's still a great game.
Yes.
However, not nearly the staying power of one in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would give 2 like an 8.7.
I gave it a 9.5.
Okay.
I really like Bioshock 2.
You were definitely one of the bigger proponents.
I think it is the sleeper game of that series. Just sort of the way they do the antagonist. I forget her name now, but she is great as just the sort of anti-foil to what one was. The combat still feels great. The added thing of like some of the harder enemies. Obviously the DLC that Steve Gaynor wrote that would later go on to write Gone Home. And the thing I love about this game most, that it isn't as prominent in Bioshock 1, is there are audio logs where, and I've talked about this before, but in the audio logs that you can pick up throughout the game, the collectibles, there are stories that only happen basically in those audio logs, as opposed to stories about, you know, characters you're experiencing. One of my favorite being, there's a story about a dad who doesn't want his daughter to become a little sister, I think. And you kind of hear that sort of him dealing with that happening. It's been a long time since I played it, so I'm sorry if I'm messing up any details. But there's a room that you can find the last one of those in that is like him on the floor.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been paying attention, you have no idea who this guy is. But if you have, it's tragic. It's almost Ishmael-esque from The Last of Us.
That was the example I was thinking of.
There are little details like that that I absolutely love, and that world is just so fun to explore. Bioshock Infinite.
This one is tough again, but I'm led to a straight down the middle 9 for Infinite, because the gameplay to me is a step backwards in certain ways.
Okay,
but the story is revelatory, but also harder to understand and wrap your head around. So it's a thinking man's game for sure. But still just executed at such a high level that has to get on the higher echelon of scores.
I may surprise you here, but I've given it a 10.
Really?
The further I get removed from that game, the more I love it.
Yeah.
It was the first Bioshock I played. I played it before the remasters. It was the same year The Last of Us came out and Gone Home, and like 2013 is an amazing gaming year. And at first I thought like, oh, that game was amazing. There's sometimes the games are the memories we make with them, right? Sure. And one of the memories I have most is staying up all night playing it in my bedroom. There's a computer I had in my bedroom. I played it on PC, and witnessing the end moments of those games at like 5 a.m. when the sun was coming up, and just like the revelatory, like, what the fuck did I just experience? I never experienced a game like that. It was similar to like some of the movies that I loved with just like the twists and turns and just that experience. The combat's not as good, I get it. But I love the setting of Colombia.
Oh yeah.
I think it's fascinating. And something that I think has influenced my love of like turn of the century history. That's something that I'm still super interested in. So yeah, for me personally, it's a 10. I understand that critically it may not be.
I think that what's interesting about that game in my head is that game pretty much exists in my mind only as the beginning of the game and the end of the game. The middle is completely muddled.
That's fair.
I haven't played it in a long time.
Yeah.
But to me, the beginning of that game is like...
Oh, it's so good.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And among the most atmospheric, enriching like ways to enter a game ever.
Yeah.
And then the end, which is a complete like bullet through your brain.
Fuck. Yeah, like, I love it. Don't remember Daisy Fitzroy and the Vox Populi?
I remember them vaguely.
Do you remember?
And I remember the Lutece twins. And
I love the Lutece twins. One of my favorite characters in any games ever.
And seeing that like barbershop quartet singing.
If I Only Had Eyes for You, is that it?
Something like that.
If I Only Had Eyes. It's a Beach Boys song, whatever they're saying.
God only knows.
God only knows what it is.
That's
it. And then there's also the Sounds of Silence guys.
Oh yeah.
With the big like horns on their head.
The portal that has Fortunate Son coming out of it.
Yeah. God, what a game. Next up, a game that we're probably not going to talk about very long because it's pretty consensus. Bloodborne.
10. I had written down... So I had just written down a few games that I thought would have made for interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would give Bloodborne a 10.
Oh, easily.
For me, Bloodborne is the most foreboding, challenging, like... game in like challenging in the sense of like challenges you mentally and is challenging in and of itself, like so incredible.
Bloodborne is one of my favorite journeys with a game I've ever had because I tried it, quit it, quit it. On the third try it clicked, and I've been chasing that high in so many games ever since. So the atmosphere, I've come to love Souls games, and honestly, would I love Souls games if I didn't do them as a streaming experience? I'm not sure, but they are some of my favorite games ever to stream because there is an elation that not only comes from you when you beat a boss, but also from everyone in chat just going like, yeah, we did it, whatever. And I've met some really cool people through that community as well. So yeah, Bloodborne is inarguably a 10 in my head. Call of Duty Black Ops
1.
Yeah, I only did Black Ops 1 and 2 because we had a lot of Call of Duties in common.
Sure.
And these are the ones that I know the most of.
Black Ops 1 is one of them that I would dub one of the good ones.
Yes. Which means it's an 8. That's where my brain went.
For me, it means it's like an 8.5.
Okay.
Because there are a couple Call of Duties that break into the 9s or higher, but maybe just 2 Call of Duties ever could breach that threshold.
Right.
And Black Ops is just in the tier below that.
Black Ops 2.
I would say even a tier below that. I think Black Ops 2 is like an 8.2 or like...
See, I gave it an 8.3. I like Black Ops 2 a little bit more.
Black Ops 2 is really good.
I have more fond memories with that game, and that's why, but...
Maybe one of these days we'll do like a tier list of Call of Duties.
Oh, God.
That'd be a good idea.
All right. Next up, we are on game 13, if you're curious. Control.
I had written down Control as well, because I thought that would be a fun one.
I was looking,
yeah,
right? And I had platinumed Control. And then did you get the platinum?
I did.
You had platinumed Control Ultimate Edition.
Correct.
Are they separate trophy lists?
I suppose they are.
Because when I saw my Control stat, you had like 2%. So I don't know exactly what is going on. It was like PS4 versus PS5, I guess.
Yeah,
but they're separate depending on the console.
Yeah.
So could I go re-platinum Control is my question.
But then the question is, do you really want to?
I don't know.
Because I'm pretty sure I remember this quote exactly verbatim as you said it once, that Control is maybe the most forgettable 9 you've ever played.
Yeah. I've actually moved it down to an 8 now.
I was going to say.
Because of that. Yeah, that's the one sentence I remember saying about it at the time, because there are certain aspects of the game that are so fucking cool and so good and so well done, and then a lot of it is just kind of bland.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like they chose very specific moments to have lots of character, and everything else was just kind of filler between those moments, which I understand. But
I think that my biggest critique with Control is the enemy diversity is not very good at all.
That's fair.
But when I think about it, the character of the oldest house itself,
it's so cool,
is where a lot of that sort of energy was probably channeled into.
Yes.
Just the random things that you stumble across, the room full of clocks, like the maze that you fly through, the
ashtray maze. Oh my god!
Like some of those moments are incredible.
That section's amazing.
And if the game were mostly that stuff, it would be a 9 or higher,
without a doubt.
But I'm thinking like an 8.3 for Control. Really, really solid game. Just missing some character and panache.
Yes.
From the characters themselves.
Yeah, because I agree with you. The best character in that game is the house.
Yeah.
And
the hotel.
Yeah. Oh god, that hotel's so cool. Like the fundamental basis of that game is so much cooler than any of the actual like characters in the game. It's so weird. I will say though, a sequel would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be very excited for a sequel, and I think this is one of the few games that I wish had gotten sort of the Miles Morales treatment. Had it been shorter,
sure,
I think it would have been a lot more lovable, because just some of the extended, like, you know, combat missions might have been.
That's true.
The last boss was really weird.
The last boss was almost not even a boss. It was just kind of a rush of normal enemies.
Yeah. Okay, next up, an interesting one. Dark Souls 3.
Dark Souls 3 is like it's very good. Has some of the best bosses in the entire Souls series. Has some of the combat adoptions from Bloodborne. It's a little quicker. You can make your character basically Bloodborne-esque if you choose.
Yeah.
I think I'm leaning like an 8.8 on Dark Souls 3.
I gave it a 7.7, interestingly. Not my favorite, but I have warmed on that game quite a bit. There are problems I have with it, specifically the gimmick fights.
Yeah.
That is because Bloodborne doesn't, to my knowledge, have a gimmick fight, which is, if you're not familiar with the series, something that is not an actual boss combat itself, but rather there's some little gimmick to it to beat the boss.
I think you could argue that there's at least one, which is the Witches of Hemwick. But even then, it's sort of...
But it's not like you're using an item to do it,
sure.
Or like Yorm is the Dark Souls 3 gimmick boss that made me want to tear my hair out because I had never been introduced to that before. So seeing that, I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Now, having played more of those types of games and more of the FromSoft games, I like it more. I still don't know where this is going to end up overall, but right now as it sits, it's like right below an 8 for me.
Sure.
Because there was some part of it that I didn't really like. But some of the bosses are amazing. Demon Souls. Yes.
I'm rating the reboot.
We're both we're both rating the remake. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I think this is more indicative of the actual game than the remake itself. I gave it a 7.
Wow.
I'm not a huge fan of this game after the fact. The further I get away from it, the more I realize it was just kind of, it laid the groundwork, but it was like, I feel so toward it all.
Because of the...
Except for Lothria, or the Tower.
Quality and fidelity of the remake. And because the Tower of Lothria was so good. I think I'm going to give it an 8.5. Okay. I really still liked it. But...
I enjoyed it.
I, again, like, clearly demonstrated I have more of an infatuation with the Souls games as a whole.
Sure, yeah.
It's still on the lesser of the Souls series. Among the lesser.
Yeah, it's my least favorite that I've played so far. Destiny.
1.
Yes.
So vanilla Destiny.
That's the thing. How are we going to grade it? So if we grade one of them as vanilla, we have to grade both of them as vanilla.
Yeah, we do, don't
so
we?
Destiny and Destiny 2 both experienced vast improvements from the DLC.
Yeah.
So I gave them both 8s at launch.
At launch?
Yes.
Oh, Destiny 1 at launch is not an 8, in my opinion.
I love Destiny 1 at launch. The story was shit.
I mean, it was fun, but I was a freshman in college. I was just...
When Destiny 1 came out?
I think so. I remember playing Destiny 1 in my dorm room.
I thought I was a freshman in college when Destiny 1 came out.
Well, I guess it came out in 2014.
Right, which would have been my sophomore year.
But 2 didn't come out until 2016.
Right.
So it had to have been 1.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I poured way many more hours into this game than it deserved at first. But even still, I think I give vanilla Destiny 1 like a 7.2.
Okay.
still good, still competent, but was absolutely thirsty for any better, deeper content.
Sure. I think I tie a lot of the fun of like the loot cave and just the random quirks of that early Destiny experience to giving it an 8. And Destiny 2 is kind of the same in my brain, was kind of the same experience at launch. So, Destiny 1 was 2014.
Okay. Yeah, Destiny 2 I would give about an 8 at launch for That's sure. Fair. I definitely think it was more robust of an experience than the first one.
Yes, but I also think lacked some of that weird charm that Destiny 1 had. An interesting one to try to give a score to. Fall Guys.
Yeah, that is tough. I think for what it is, it succeeds incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I think my gut is like an 8.2. Like,
I gave it an 8.
Just rock solid fun, but obviously could a game like Fall Guys even be a 10? You know, like I don't know if I could ever give it that.
And I think the thing that's hampering Fall Guys for me is that it kind of got stale very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they had added more. I understand they're doing that now with seasons. Like, I played some recently. It's pretty good. But they should have been updating stuff weekly or monthly at least. Like, the first month was great, and then it was like, oh, it's just these same games over and over again. Okay, I'm going to move on to something else.
And once a game crushes your soul, you don't really want to go back to it much more.
I saw that you had 92% of the trophies, and I was like, damn, it sucks. To go back to the Bethesda discussion earlier, Fallout 4.
Okay, so talking about how I was not enamored with it, I think leads you to it's not an elite game, but it's still very good. In spite of some of the weird, like it was kind of buggy. It was not a lot of heart to a lot of the characters. I think a lot of them were kind of generic.
Yeah,
the story wasn't super gripping.
No,
that's like an 8. I think
I gave it a 7.5.
Down the middle.
I gave it a 7.5 because I think I had a little bit more expectation maybe than you did going in.
It was the first Fallout I ever played extensively.
Knowing Fallout 3 and knowing Fallout New Vegas, I was like, okay, this might be great. And then, like, the things you mentioned were kind of just like, okay. It was a game that it's a game that I want to go back to at some point. But at the time, didn't have much drive to play, which is weird for an open world. Like, all you want to do is go explore that kind of game. I felt like I was just kind of running through the motion with it, so... And a game I hadn't thought about in a long time, Far Cry 4.
Oh.
You platinumed this game.
I did, because it wasn't very hard.
Right. I saw that, I was like, wait, what? I had no idea.
Far Cry 4 was disappointing.
I gave it a 6.5.
Yeah.
Because Far Cry 3 and Blood Dragon were so good, and 4, I was like, Troy Baker's the villain, and that's all I remember. I don't remember anything about this game at all.
I think I would give it like a 7.4, something like that. Like, it's fine, like, but it's clearly not on the level of Far Cry 3, which I think ever since Far Cry 3, it's just been downhill from there. Not necessarily continually downhill, but just have not reached the highs of that again.
I really liked 5 of what I played of it. I enjoyed 5 a lot.
I started 5 and just didn't get deep into it.
I like the cult vibe, the Christian cult thing. Firewatch.
Ooh. That's a tough one.
It is. I spent a lot of time thinking
about this. This is a head scratcher. I'm going to give it a 7.9.
I gave it a 7.1.
Wow.
Mainly because outside of the first hour and a half, I think that gets... It peaks way too early.
Yeah.
And it just kind of is like, okay, when's it going to get back? Oh, wait, this is a weird story. Wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful. We've talked about the Ollie Moss stuff and like more than just the promotional material. Ollie Moss did all the cool book covers that were like visual puns, and there's some really cool writing and some of the found documents and stuff. But I remember that game more as the first hour and then just the promotional stuff, and then I forget the rest of the game.
Yeah, see, I remember was completely emotionally roused by this game, like, and was desperate for a payoff at the end that never really came. And they sort of dangled it in front of you and then took it away.
Yeah,
and I was like compelled a lot by that memory of how gripping that part was. But then it is pulled back by the weirdness of everything else.
Yeah,
so
that weird like conspiracy plot is so strange, and it just doesn't work for me. Ghost of Tsushima.
Ooh. You know what? Oh man, that's tough, actually. Because now we're starting to get into the point where I gave Returnal a 9.1 last week. I'm sort of having that as my most recent thing in my head. So now I've got to think: do I like Ghost of Tsushima more or less? And Ghost of Tsushima is about as complete of a game as you could ever ask for.
Yeah,
rock solid story, not like blowing your hair back.
No,
but it's just solid.
Right,
gameplay. Excellent. World, beautiful.
Yes.
It's at least a 9, and I'm trying to wonder if I'm going to creep it any higher.
I gave it exactly a 9.
That's what I'm tempted to do.
And I still haven't finished this game. I don't know. Yeah. I need to get back to it at some point.
Because to me, there's something...
I love my experience with it.
A little bit special and unique about Returnal, whereas I think you could argue that there's not a lot special and unique about Ghost of Tsushima. It's
the old Horizon argument, which is like it does everything well.
It is the apex of the open world action third person.
Yeah, like doesn't reinvent the wheel, but does everything.
Does it incredibly well. I'll give it a 9 as well.
That UI, great.
Yeah,
incredible use of UI. 23, God of War.
10, baby.
It's a 10.
Unquestionable.
Pure vanilla. It's a 10.
That's a 10.
Yeah, not much to talk about there.
No,
I don't think.
Story.
I have a fucking Kratos statue.
Yeah, exactly. There. Story makes you cry.
Yep.
Combat
makes you cry.
That's what I was gonna say. Beautiful.
The music, the soundtrack's so good. The directing of the camera.
That's a game where there's not a lot. And the game is structured in a way that makes it kind of hard to compare to like other like open world action third person games.
Sure,
but it does everything better than every other game.
Yes, yeah,
of that ilk. So
it's so fucking good. A game that I'm at some point gonna replay for sure. This will be an interesting one. Gone Home.
I knew this would come up.
Yeah,
I haven't played this game in years.
Right.
I would give Gone Home something in the...
And I will not be offended by whatever you give it, by the way.
I mean,
I don't feel like...
It's relatively high, but I think it's like an 8.2.
Okay.
It is what it is. And for me, it's Gone Home... It'd be weird for someone to give Gone Home like a 9.8 to me.
Yeah, you know what? Either a 10 or it's not.
It's either a 10 or it's a little less.
Yes, I would agree with that, 100%.
Because it's... I remember that's another game where I'm like, the atmosphere is cool here.
Yeah.
But the revelations of the story ended up leaning less into the forebodingness of the atmosphere, and you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's more of just like the love story that it is.
Right. So. Yeah, and for me it's a 10. I've talked about my love for Gone Home a lot. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Mainly because I love games where people are like, don't look anything up, just go play it.
Yeah.
And that was one of those experiences that was pre-streaming for me, where I just played it in the same bedroom I talked about Bioshock in the same year, 2013. What a year, by the way. But I remember just going through the house and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be scary. I don't like scary games. And then it became this beautiful love story with a really cool soundtrack and cool visuals. And I just love Gone Home so much. All right. GTA 5. This was harder to score for me than I thought.
Yeah, because I'm not giving it a 10.
Me neither.
I think I would give something like GTA a 9.5.
That is exactly what I gave it.
Because this is sort of a, I think we're going to be going back to this point a lot, or at least I do. Is there a singular thing in GTA 5 that you can point to and like, this game does this better than any other game?
Yeah.
Not really. Like, to me, there's like, the shooting mechanics are they're Rockstar,
Yeah, they're fine.
You're just driving around. The only thing you could argue is that the sum of everything is so huge.
Sure.
That it deserves a high score, and it does.
And I like some of the story beats with the homage to like action movies and shit like that.
Like the writing and the voice acting is all fun.
Yes.
Now, okay. There is one moment in which we could spoil GTA 5.
I think so.
And this isn't even a main story beat, but like when Trevor kidnaps the one dude's wife.
Oh, the tennis coach.
And then you're driving back with Trevor, and If You Leave Me Now by Chicago plays in the car. And Trevor's like, I don't want to let her go. And like all that stuff. I'm like, that's my favorite moment in GTA 5.
It's so good. Is that the tennis coach? There's a tennis coach involved at some point.
I don't remember.
Because you tear down his house with the truck, and you pull down like one of the support beams to tear his. I don't remember if it's the same guy.
I just love the band Chicago. Go listen to Chicago.
Shout out to Peter Cetera.
Saturday in the Park.
Buena. Guacamelee.
Another game that I anticipated coming up.
Yeah.
Guacamelee is an 8.6.
I gave it a 9.2.
Okay.
Which isn't that far off. I knew that I'd probably like this more than you did. One of my first Metroidvanias I ever played. Obviously has huge wrestling influence that we both like. The soundtrack's great. The visuals are great. I really like Drinkbox a lot.
It's just a quintessentially fun game.
Yep.
If you're a fan of retro style games, you've never played Guacamelee, absolutely you should go do it. Like
1 and 2, they're both good.
Yeah, I never finished 2. I
didn't put 2 on the list because I couldn't tell. But all right, I'm gonna kind of consolidate them all into one. So Hitman 3.
Okay, Hitman 3 is an 8.9.
I gave it a 9.
I was thinking about giving it a 9.
So we're right there.
It's another game that just, for what it is trying to accomplish, it does it incredibly well. But there's nothing like if there were a more fleshed out story that was really good, like in Hitman, it would definitely be higher.
Sure.
But for the fun, the pure ridiculousness and stupidity that goes into some of the executions of that game, it deserves a lot of credit.
It's for a game that's not a sandbox. It's one of the most playground-like experiences where you just it's the video game version of when you're a kid and you have your action figures fight each other in all sorts of ways, and you can just kind of move these pieces together however you want, and usually the game will make it work somehow, and I adore it for that. Hollow Knight.
This is one that I definitely wrote down because I wanted to talk about it.
Okay.
Now,
maybe the most surprised I've ever been that you liked a game.
I love Hollow Knight.
It's so good.
Hollow Knight to me is Guacamelee on steroids. Like,
sure, no, I'd agree with that. I gave it a 10, by the way.
I was tempted, but I don't love it that much. But I'm gonna give it a 9.6.
Nice.
Like, it is so fundamentally good.
It's so good
at everything it tries to do.
Yes, it's a team of 3 people
and has an insane amount of content. Like,
yeah, oh my god, yeah,
ridiculous.
Especially like the Voidheart edition.
Yeah, how far you can get into it. I think the trackers are like, there's not like a real compelling story, I guess.
Sure, I didn't need that personally.
I didn't either. Like, just the allure of the atmosphere and digging deeper was enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's just something that is an intangible that I can't quite give it a 10, but it is the best Metroidvania I've ever played.
Same for me, I think. And I've played quite a bit. And I just, that game is so special. And there's a part of it that's like, you're not even able to quantify, but that was the first time I had the moment that I hadn't had in probably 15 years. When you're a kid and you play your first big open world game.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, the map is this big?
Yeah.
I hadn't had that experience in so long until Hollow Knight. Because you do not realize how big that fucking map is
ridiculous.
Until you do, and it's like, wait, what? It's a mind-boggling size for that game, and it's just beautiful. Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay. Let's not get our pitchforks out here.
Okay.
Still a great game.
Yes.
But it is not. I almost have like a reverse intangible or something that happens to me with Horizon.
Okay.
Like, there's something about Horizon that just clicks with me in the wrong way. Like, it's great. Like, it's so fundamentally well made.
It's the butt. It's great butt.
Yeah.
I agree. I gave it an 8.
I think like an 8.2 is sort of where I would come down. It may be higher than an
8, but when I looked back at all of the PS4 exclusives, it is a tier below the top tier.
Yeah.
And that to me is what made it an 8. Like, there's something, and maybe I just need to replay it. Maybe I've just forgotten some of the special moments of it. But
yeah, and like,
go ahead.
The final boss is terrible, if I remember correctly.
What even is the final boss?
It's that cultist leader, and then there's just, you get put in this little ledge circle thing. I could be misremembering this, but it's just very much, he's slowly walking around the whole time. You're just like walking around, just like psh, arrow, psh, arrows.
Spoilers for Horizon, by the way, I guess.
Which is not,
it's not just really a fight.
Yeah. The real spoiler for Horizon we're not going to get into, because that's where the game shines. That's the
coolness of that game. Yeah.
But even still, I could not properly recall the story in detail right now if you asked me to.
Nope.
Which is sort of a detriment to the game that it didn't stick quite that well.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to the next one. I'll still
Me
play
too.
it.
Oh yeah, I'm very
surely
excited for
enjoy it.
And I will say, like, giving something an 8 means it's a good game.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want it to sound like that's a negative.
But some people are like supremely high on Horizon and like
Yeah.
thinking Horizon is now one of like the preeminent, exclusives out there, which I don't know that I would quite go as far as to say that.
A game that you would love to become that once again, Infamous.
Infamous
1.
Yeah, which is my favorite. I'm gonna give. Oh no! Okay, see now I have the internal wrestling match of comparing the scores to other games. And like I just gave Hollow Knight a 9.6, so it's like. And I guess these scores are neither entirely subjective nor entirely objective.
Right,
They're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But
Can I have another beer, by the way?
Sure. I think I have to give Infamous 1. I guess I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna give it a 9.7.
Thank you.
I'll give it a little nod higher.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it has that style to it, the comic book cutscenes,
the
cool story twist, the uniqueness of just being an electric superhero, like and being able to pull electricity from things. Like it was such a novel idea. I absolutely adore Infamous. So
I gave it a 9.3.
Okay.
So I'm not too far off. I will say, Infamous 1, I remember more of. And Infamous 2, I'm pretty sure I played part of with Hank at Hank's house. Because I looked at my trophy percent and I had 1% of trophies. I was like, wait a min't. No. I've played this game. And I realized it was in his attic, like, sort of passing the controller back. That's how I first played Arkham Asylum as well. But, yeah, so I gave Infamous 1 a 9.3. I gave Infamous 2 an 8.7.
Yeah, I'd probably give it like an 8.8 or 8.9.
The concept's so good.
It just got a little too muddled with the different types of, I forget what they're called in Infamous, but like the people who have the potential to have superpowers.
Yeah. Oh, what are they called?
Conduits.
Yes.
Like the conduits with different powers, and like so all of a sudden half the world are conduits, but they don't have a way to activate their powers. And the Beast is like kind of a weird enemy. He's just kind of there, and then
the fact that they changed his voice actor, it still bothers me. I don't get it. The dichotomy
of the endings, like I like one ending, I don't like the other.
Right.
Like it's just a overbloated version of Infamous. Infamous 1 was very streamlined, I think, in a lot of ways.
Infamous Second Son, a game I have soured on quite a bit.
Yeah.
I gave it a 6.8.
I'm gonna give it a 7.8. That's actually where I was coming at it from. Because it's still fundamentally a good game, beautiful still.
Really? I haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah, it still looks great. Plays silky smooth. Has some cool elements to it. I think Infamous First Light is actually the better sort of...
Yeah, I need to play that at some point.
...variant of that game.
I never played that or Festival of Blood.
But yeah, Delson, not a great character in spite of being voiced by Troy Baker. That's one of his misses.
Yeah. Well, maybe not his fault.
Not his misses necessarily, but misses misuses of him.
Yes.
And the villain was boring, and you can kill your like indigenous grandma if you choose.
That's right. God, I forgot about that. Yeah, there were some cool parts about it. Seattle was a cool, or whatever they called fake Seattle.
Yeah.
Was cool, but it is just a game that has not stuck with me in any regard.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's almost a 7. Injustice 1. I'm not going to count 2 because I didn't play enough 2.
That's interesting. I almost said an 8, but I'm not going to give it. I
gave it a 7.5.
I was going to say 7.4.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's just pretty
good game.
It's a good fighting game.
Yeah. I think anything, for my taste, anything above a 7 even is good. Like 6 is decent. 5 is where you start to get like really bad. Now we don't have to do this one, but just Jackbox as a whole.
I don't know even how to do that, but
I gave just the
concept of Jackbox.
Yeah, I gave it a 10 just because it's changed party
I guess
scenarios.
I would give it like a 9, like because across the board it just provides so much entertainment value.
Yeah. A game you and I are both fond of, Killzone Shadowfall.
I mean, we're fond of it, yes.
That's why I phrased it that way.
But I never even finished the single player.
Nor did I.
And yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.9.
I gave it a 7.8.
All right, yeah.
We're right in the same ballpark there. Minecraft. You sounded like a tuba.
I almost said 10 reflexively.
It is a 10, I think.
I think you can very easily make the argument.
Yeah, nothing's like it.
I'm gonna give it a 9.5.
Okay.
Like,
reason being?
First of all, a 9.5 is a round-ish. Like, I'm giving it a half-point increment because I feel like you could wiggle me up or down a little bit.
Yeah, you can always wiggle me up or down.
I don't know. That's just something fundamentally enticing about going into this world and surviving. That's a really fun, unique experience in Minecraft. Yeah. But it's also something intangible about it. Doesn't grip me emotionally in any way.
That's fair.
It's not scary enough when you go deep down into a cave. It's not like exciting enough when you finally build your house, like something like that. I don't know. It's supremely good, and it does what it sets out to do. It's so zen, man.
I love how zen it is. In No Man's Sky.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Didn't play a ton of it, and never have gone back to it post updates. Okay. So my score would be based on what I played of it originally, and that would be like a
6.
I was thinking like a 6.7 or something like that.
Yeah. See, I gave it an 8, but I am someone who came back to it.
Yeah.
And I think this is different than the Destiny argument because Destiny, a lot of that was DLC.
Oh, yeah.
No Man's Sky was free updates. So I think having gone back to it, I saw the appeal of it. And it's still a game that I will watch streams of from time to time. I enjoy that game now. Finally. Good for them, by the way. For turning that around.
Kudos.
Another hard one to rate. Overwatch.
8.
I gave it 8.5. I spent a lot of time with that game, and I think that made me probably at some point think higher of it, and now think maybe less of it. So I'm right at an 8.5.
Yeah, it's just very solid. But never drew me in.
Not a ton of potential to keep playing.
No,
or not a ton of reason to keep playing. Sorry.
Exactly.
Incentive. Peggle 2.
10.
Yes, I gave it a 10 too. It's for what it is.
Exactly, it is quintessential fun. Like, it is just the perfect little arcade game that you just love to go back and play. Like, I could still go back and play it and have fun, even though I could have gotten the platinum like 18 times by now, probably.
One of my favorite trophy grinds ever, passing the controller in the dorm. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
I didn't play enough of it, but
okay. I saw it on there.
Yeah. I touched it.
I am one of probably the larger proponents of this game, and I gave it a 6.5. So if that tells you anything, there's a lot of potential there, and I think I liked it for the potential. I got the fucking platinum, and that was my first ever platinum. Was that game? Ratchet and Clank,
the 2016.
Yes,
another one that I didn't play enough and don't really feel comfortable giving it a score.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to put a stamp on that or not. I gave it a 9. Red Dead 2.
10.
10. Agreed.
The story was great. The world is incredible. Arthur Morgan is just a Mount Rushmore of video game protagonists, like type.
Sure.
So fun, so good on every level.
Yes. I can't say any more than that. Resogun.
Not my kind of game.
Enjoy that, audio listeners.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You're good. It's just a very long one.
Not my kind of game.
Uh-huh.
But I respect it for what it is.
Yep.
And I'm kind of retroactively giving Housemarque games more credit because of how much I love Returnal.
Yeah.
I think Resogun is like an 8 for me.
I gave it an 8.5.
Yeah.
It is also not my kind of game, but it's the only type of that type of game. It's the only version of that type of game, the twin stick shooter, that I've ever wanted to play more of and gone back to multiple times. I downloaded it when the PS5 came out because I just wanted something to have to just kind of spend some time in. I'm going to skip Returnal for now because I don't have enough to score it.
You know my score, 9.1.
Rocket League, 10. Undoubtedly. There is no game like it.
No.
One of the best things I ever heard about Rocket League was no one is good at it inherently. Because it is so, like, racing game fans, you can't be good at it. Sports games fans, you have to learn that game for what it is. And it is also the most, I've played it, like, my buddy Straub, who I play with all the time, he played soccer for a long time. He was like, this is the most a video game has ever felt like a sport.
Yeah.
Like, from the, communication aspect of it to, like, missing your shots, taking your shots, knowing where to be. Like, it's all... It is truly an esport, which is so funny because it's car soccer.
Yeah.
But it works so well. And I was playing last night, and something kind of clicked in my head where it may be more than any other game that I remember. I don't feel like I'm taking control of a controller.
I feel like I am the car now. Like all of the movement is translated. I don't think about a controller being in my hand. I just think about what I want the car to do, and I do it.
Sure.
It's almost similar like a Guitar Hero thing where you kind of like zone out to a little bit, like your brain kind of drops down in activity for a second because you just become the thing.
Yeah, and that probably happens with like a lot of games where
you're
just at a certain point you've played a game enough that you don't think about the buttons you're pushing. But Rocket League is just like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. It's almost like if you asked me what button does something in Rocket League, I couldn't tell you.
Until
I could
you
just
hold
reflexively do it.
Yeah. A game that you and you may not even, you probably remember this, but a game that you and I played together that we don't think we've ever talked about playing together, Saints Row the Third.
Oh yeah,
we played the online together for a little bit.
Goodness. And I didn't play a ton of Saints Row the Third. I played more of Saints Row 4, which that's a game.
Yeah,
you know. Shoot,
I didn't play a lot of 4.
Saints Row 3. That's not getting north of an 8. That's getting
I gave it a 7.9.
I'd give it like a 7.3.
As someone who platinumed it and loved it at the time, probably doesn't age super well.
No.
If I had to guess.
I don't think any of those games age very well.
Yeah, and it was fun. I enjoyed my time with it, but Sekiro.
This is a tough one.
It is. It's very hard.
I would not begrudge anyone who gave Sekiro a 10. I love Sekiro.
I do too.
Best combat in a game. Slightly edging out God of War, as I've said.
Yeah.
Sekiro is a 9.6.
Oh, I gave it a 9.7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a hair below Bloodborne, but I think it's easily my favorite of the Souls games I've played since Bloodborne.
Yeah.
It's just so fast. The combat's so cool. The only doc I gave it was because you have so many repeat boss fights. That's the only doc I have of
There's
it.
a little bit of repetitiveness to Sekiro.
Yeah.
You go back to certain environments that they recycle throughout the story.
Yeah.
But they do it in a cool way, but you could still dock them for saying, well, I would have sort of rather just had a whole other area than to come back to this place and it just looked different.
Shovel Knight.
9.
10.
Okay.
Shovel Knight's a perfect game for what it is to my taste. Skyrim.
10.
9.4. I like Skyrim a lot. I still prefer Fallout 3, and that was kind of the wrap on it for me.
Skyrim for me is absolutely the nostalgic.
That's yours.
Giant map opened up, go explore, playground kind of game.
And I just prefer the post-apocalypse to fantasy anyway.
Yeah.
Sound Shapes.
Oh. Another just completely unique game.
Yes.
And really solid, like fundamentally well made, good platformer.
Yeah, great trophy list.
It is a lucrative trophy list.
Yes, it is.
If you game the system properly,
which I did.
Which I did, but not nearly to the extent that you did.
Yeah.
Soundshape is like an 8.2.
I gave it an 8.
It's solid. It really is.
It's very good. Spider-Man.
9.2.
8.5 for me.
Okay.
Simply because I think now pretty much every aspect I liked about Spider-Man I like more about Miles Morales.
Yeah, I would give, well, I guess Miles is coming up.
It's the next one.
I think I'd give Miles like a 9.4.
Okay, I gave it a 9.2.
Yeah.
Which is what you gave Spider-Man. So
yeah, because I think Miles Morales is the more concise, streamlined version of Spider-Man.
Some people like Spider-Man more because it is more verbose, basically, but I prefer we're going to give you this great experience in 10 hours. There's probably 20 hours of content all told if you want it. That's it. See ya. It's like, great. That's all I need. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like the things that are knocks on Spider-Man 1, the story's not as concise, obviously, but also like some of the random crime isn't as fun for the trophy. And this is trophy stuff, but I just prefer Miles Morales.
I wish that...
And I like Miles more than Peter.
I think the Miles story is more inventive and well told, but I just wish they hadn't thrown in the whole kitchen sink with Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man PS4. They threw in a lot of Spider-Man villains and sort of lore.
Kind of got convoluted.
Whereas Miles Morales took a lesser-known villain and elevated them, and sort of did their own unique take in a way that the first one didn't. First one was very straightforward in a lot of ways.
I mean, I guess you could argue with Mr. Negative or whatever, but
that was a red herring for all intents and purposes.
Sure, yeah.
Jedi Fallen Order. Star Wars, technically, if you're wondering for alphabetical sake.
Shoot. Is there anything that can elevate that game in my head?
I gave it an 8.
I'm teetering around 8, and I'm wondering if I want to dock it a little bit or bump it a little bit. I think I want to dock it a little bit.
It's kind of forgettable in a weird way.
I'm going to go 7, 8.
Okay.
It's rock solid, and it is a Souls-like, pretty much.
Yes, sure.
And judging it by that, it is not on the same level as the other Souls games.
Yeah.
Both in combat, and the story is kind of bleh, except for like a particular moment.
Right. One moment in that game's awesome.
Yeah. One moment in that game is like transcendently awesome. Like,
yeah.
But
Star Wars Battlefront.
7.5.
I gave it 7.7.
Yeah.
Moving on. Superhot.
I've only recently played some of it. I'm not quite deep enough, but I imagine I've gleaned enough.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
it's one
anything
of those games that once you play it, you've played.
That's left to unveil about it. Like a 7.6. Like, it's cool.
I gave it an 8.2.
You know,
I really like that game. But it it does a weird thing where it's super deep, but kind of like short.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like this weird sort of like narrow but deep thing where you can keep replaying all the levels if you want in different challenge modes and stuff for the trophies, but at some point you get kind of sick of the levels.
Yeah.
So that's what's docking it from higher for me, but I love that game a lot. Tales from the Borderlands.
I was thinking about this game earlier, and what's funny is that I was kind of thinking about it in reference to GTA 5 in a way.
Huh, okay.
Because GTA 5 was the game that I was, in my head, I was thinking of. GTA 5 doesn't do anything transcendently well. Tales of the Borderlands does one thing transcendently well, and that is just the writing is phenomenal.
It's very good.
It is hilarious. It is my favorite Telltale game. I give that an even 9.
I gave it an 8.5.
Okay.
It is not my favorite Telltale game, but I think it was a little bit lower for me just because you and our buddy Skinny
we hyped it up
a lot, and it was still really good. I'm not saying that it made it negative, but there were some really funny moments. I do remember the last episode's really long, and like surprisingly so, and I just kept waiting for it to finish, but it's still very good and very funny. A game that, actually, sorry, I was one ahead. Telltale Batman.
Ooh.
My lowest score.
That's why I might have to do it.
4.
Wow.
I hated this game. I didn't hate it, but I did not like it.
It's bad.
Yes. For a few reasons. One, I played it on PS5. I don't know if it was part of playing it on PS5. Maybe I played it on PS4, actually. But, I played it on PS4 Pro. That's what it was. It looked like shit. It looked worse than any other Telltale game, which is weird because it was later. Because they were using a new engine, and there was this weird separation. If you don't know how Telltale games work, they're these sort of choose-your-own-adventure type things where there's a lot of cutscenes, but there is some, like, you walk around point-and-click adventure type stuff. But it was so blatantly obvious in that game particularly when something was in the video game engine and when something was like a pre-shot cutscene, like an MP4 file that they just put in, that it took me out literally every time I saw it. I was like, oh, we're getting a cutscene. Okay. The story, as someone who has read and watched and experienced a lot of Batman stories, is the single worst Batman story I've ever heard.
It is.
It's so bad. Yeah. Like, I almost don't care to spoil it because
do it. Like,
okay, spoilers for Telltale Batman.
Honestly, do it because I barely remember it.
So, the big bad of Telltale Batman is this character called Lady Arkham. Lady Arkham, this whole time, you're like, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Harley Quinn? Is it going to be Catwoman, who you've been talking to the whole time? Is it going to be Joker in some sort of... Who's it going to be? It's fucking Vicky Vale. What? The news reporter. Like, I get they were trying their own thing, and kudos for that, I guess, but it just did not work. Like, I could not buy Vicky Vale as this... She's actually the daughter of an Arkham, and she's been trained in, like, this sort of assassin style her whole life, but then went undercover as a reporter and then like lashed out against her family and killed them
and left their orphan kid stranded in this closet, and like it's Vicky Vale. Like that story sucks. It's so bad.
That game is fundamentally not very good.
Yeah.
I might have had that game crash on me more than any other game. Oh my god,
yeah.
Beyond just the quality of the rest of the game, it was technically pretty much broken when I played it.
Yeah, it didn't get any better.
I want to say that it crashed and deleted my save at one point.
Oh, Jesus.
Something like that. Yeah, I might have to give it like a 5.2 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just not very good in any way.
I also, one of the funniest things I've ever seen was, and I think there's a Twitch clip somewhere, for some reason, I don't know if it was the PS4 Pro or what, when Gordon smoked, it was literally like triangles came out. Just like huge translucent triangles, and it looked terrible. Yeah. It was awesome. Yeah. I love Telltale. For the most part, that game's bad. I played the first episode of the second one, and it is better.
Oh, okay.
But that's all I've played so far, so who knows. A game that I didn't know we had both played. Tetris Effect.
Ooh, yeah.
What would you give Tetris Effect?
Tetris Effect is like an 8.5. It's Tetris, which means it's great.
Yes.
And then it has a unique spin of being a borderline rhythm game. It's it is very. I would like to play it in VR. It has been one of the better VR experiences, or so I've heard. Even just for what it is, it's just rock solid, good fun.
I gave it an 8, and the only reason I docked it is because I had heard such good things, and it doesn't drop in price very often. I bought it for like $20. It's really short.
It is short.
It's like a day's worth of, like, I played it in one sitting, and I'm not somebody who gets through a lot of stuff in one sitting. So that I was like, oh, because I was playing it on stream, and someone in chat was like, you have one section left, and I was like, wait, oh, okay. It'd been like 2 hours, and I'd gotten through it. I was like, oh, okay. But it is a game to just have on your dashboard, and if you want to play Tetris, that's great.
You can play it over and over again. It has like it has your classic Tetris like marathon modes and like other things, but the quote unquote story or campaign is very short,
which is what I was there for.
Yeah,
I prefer Tetris 99. The Last of Us 10. The Last of Us 2 10. All right,
different kinds of 10s. Yes, but they're both 10s.
But they are both 10s. I agree. The Walking Dead, the Telltale game.
The season 1?
First one, yes.
I'm going to give season 1 a... Let's see. So I gave Tales of the Borderlands saying it was my favorite. So I'm going to give Walking Dead like an 8.6.
I gave it a 9. This is my favorite Telltale game.
Yeah. Definitely tugs on the heartstrings a lot more.
I tend to like the serious moments of this more than the funny moments of Borderlands.
Sure.
Borderlands is so interesting because not many games do humor as well as that game did.
Yeah.
But this game does serious stuff as well as a lot of games have. And that was before. It was still a little bit buggy, but you could kind of overlook it because it was Telltale's first like foray into that kind of stuff, even though they had made Sam and Max, a series I really like that people forget about. Walking Dead Season 2.
8.4.
I gave it a 7.9.
Wow.
I don't remember a lot of it.
I don't remember a ton of either. I remember the endings of both.
I remember, I think you were at my house when I did the ending.
That rings a bell.
I think it was me, you, and Hank.
Something about this is familiar.
I think I was streaming it.
Yeah.
And you were like, wait, what? Because I chose something that you didn't expect me to. Yeah, it was good. Not as memorable as the first season, though. The Witcher 3.
Oh.
A game you and I have both sort of dissed.
Yeah, but I'm gonna... I can't in good faith knock it down that far based on my... You know, there are certain... I've built up my disdain for this game.
Sure.
Less because of the actual quality and more because it's fun.
Right.
Because there's really only... The combat is the nitpick and the boringness of the characters. That's pretty much my two nitpicks.
Are pretty big too.
Sure, but you can argue that this is a huge game that has a ton of side quests and content that's really cool.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to give it like an 8 even.
I gave it a 7.5.
Yeah.
It's funny too because there was a moment when I was playing it on stream that I really liked it. And then it kept going.
Yeah.
And then it kept going. And then it kept going. I was like, all right, I'm done. The combat just never evolves in a way that you would like. The Witness. A game that you have 92% of the trophies in.
Really?
Yep.
Does that have a platinum?
Yep.
Gonna have to look into that.
I've got the platinum. It's very hard.
Isn't there like one trophy that is ridiculous?
So, most of The Witness, the puzzle game, you can obviously look up a guide for the puzzles you're struggling with. And there's a specific like challenge room that is all randomly generated, and you can't look up guides for, and you have to do it under a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's just like learning it. I
think that's one of those that I'm like, I know that there's no chance I'm going to get this, so I probably abandoned it. The Witness is, I'm going to give it like a 8.3.
I gave it a 9. It's one of my favorite puzzle games I've ever played.
Yeah.
I really like it.
It's just a little too, and not to, say this in such
artsy
a negative.
fartsy?
That's exactly the term I was going to use.
Yeah, no, it is. It totally is. It's totally artsy fartsy.
It's totally just sort of like an art piece.
Yes.
Veiled as a video game.
And shocker, I enjoy that kind of thing. 3/4 home.
I know I played this game.
You probably beat it because it's like 30 minutes.
Yeah, but it's weird that I can play a game and maybe don't remember enough of it to even review it, but I think that's the situation here.
I gave it a 7. I like that game a lot, but it's not a lot of content. Tomb Raider.
Okay.
This is the reboot.
A fundamentally good game.
Yes.
8.4.
7.8. I liked it for the most part, but
fun to tell the story of how I got the platinum. So,
which is
me and Andrew did the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
For probably a sum total of like 18 hours, just to grind each other up levels.
If you want to do it again, let me know.
I don't.
Tricky Towers.
Tricky Towers.
Great game.
A fantastic game. 8.9. It's just really, really good Tetris style game.
I gave it 8.1. Very good. Uncharted 1.
I wrote down all the Uncharted because I think this is a fun can of worms to get into. Uncharted 1, I'm going to give what I'm going to call a little bit of the Iron Man effect.
Okay.
Because it started it all.
Yeah.
It started this legendary series, one of my favorite series ever in games.
Right.
Because the first one is fundamentally not fantastic.
It's not great.
It is not aged well, but still has the Nate and Elena and Sully charm.
Sure.
That makes it still fun to play. But I'm only going to give it like a 7.8.
Oh, I gave it an 8.2. Okay. I was expecting me lower on you than that.
Yeah.
Or lower than you on that. But yeah, it's like you said, it's set everything in motion. Harder to grade now. It's almost to the point with that game where if someone were looking to play them all, I would almost tell them to skip it.
I would.
And say start with 2.
I can't do it. Because
I don't think you should, but if someone's like, I want to play the best of Uncharted, maybe one's not where to start, but I don't know.
Maybe not, but I think the rest of them are significantly bolstered by the establishing of Nate and Elena's relationship and Nate and Sully's relationship.
Sure.
And there are some quips from that first game that are just so good.
Yeah.
That it'd be hard to skip it and get the full effect of the rest of them.
Well, I'll be son of a bitch is one of my.
Wait, is that what it is?
That's what it is, right? Well, I'll be.
Oh crap!
Is it not what it is? Oh no.
Victor.
Well, I'll be go to hell. That's what it is.
Well, I'll be go to hell. Yeah.
that's one of my favorite quotes from any game. Uncharted 2.
Now,
Jay's so ready for this.
I don't think, as much as I love the Uncharted games, I don't think I'm going to give any of them a 10.
Okay.
I think they're all somewhere in the 9s, and from this point forward, 2, 3, and 4 are all somewhere in the 9s.
Yes.
And then it's just a question of, do I give them all about the same score or do I mix it up? And I love Uncharted 2 for certain reasons, certain things that it does better than its, later, what's the opposite of a predecessor?
It's progeny.
Okay. So
subsessor?
I'm going to give Uncharted 2 a 9.2.
Okay, I gave Uncharted 2 a 9.7.
Oh, wow.
I went opposite to you. I am giving one of them a 10.
It's 3, I presume.
3 is my 10, yes.
I think I'm going to give 3 a 9.6.
Okay.
Just because the set pieces are incredible.
My favorite of the series.
Like, just mind-boggling in their awesomeness and style and music. Like, and it's just so good. Which then leads into 4, I presume.
Yes.
Which I'm going to give a 9.5.
I gave 4 a 9.7 as well.
I
think they're all 3 great.
Uncharted 4 is the
amazing,
objective best gameplay.
Yes.
The story is interesting in that it is a more personal story, but the shoehorning in of Drake's brother rubbed me the wrong way.
That's fair.
I think if that had stuck the landing better, I think Uncharted 4 would be my favorite. Because it's such a nostalgia trip in a lot of ways.
Sure, yeah.
It lets you relive a lot of the memories from the prior games.
Yeah.
It is just, but all of those games are just so well made and just about as perfect video games. If you're just looking to have fun,
yes,
those are the games you should absolutely play.
Yeah, and that's why I gave Uncharted 3 a 10, because I don't know that you can do a game like that better than they did.
Yeah.
And that was my ultimate, like, that's what a 10 is.
Except for maybe that last thing, but, you know.
In Uncharted 3?
Yeah. Which we got into this, but...
Yeah, I like that.
It's fine.
It's
not Lazarevich.
No, shout out. I love Lazarevich. Watch Dogs.
Ooh. Yikes.
Yeah.
How low are we gonna go here?
How low can you go? I give
not as low as Batman.
No, I gave it a 6.8. That might be generous, but
I'm gonna give it a 7.
Yeah, you know? I enjoyed it at the time. It's just,
the promise of that game was
Aiden
so
Pierce.
much more than it ever was.
Aiden Pierce is one of the worst protagonists.
Is just absolute drab.
Yeah, that story's weird.
Yeah, but just the idea of the hacking is cool.
Yeah,
and I don't know. That game's very forgettable.
Watch Dogs 2.
A game that is a little less forgettable.
Correct.
But I still don't love it. It's good.
Yeah.
But even in it, I'm like, I don't remember that story well enough. It didn't grip me in
I remember the Scientology bit. That was cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
7.9.
I gave it an 8.4.
Okay.
I really like Marcus just as a protagonist, and he made that game really fun.
Yeah.
And Watch Dogs has enough promise to me as a series that I enjoyed. It was very fun to play in.
I like the two leaning more into the hacking. Like one, you were hacking to sort of set up shootouts.
Right.
This one, there were missions dedicated. Like, you're going to hack your way through this entire mission. Which I really
never
liked.
fire a gun.
Right.
All right.
Is that it?
That's it.
You want to pepper in a couple and then
sure, go for it. Yeah.
Well, let's just hit the big one, the big two in recent years. At
okay.
least. Because I wrote down Mario Odyssey. Now, are you going to give it a 10? It's one that I don't know.
I think I give it a 9.5.
Yeah.
Because it's one of my favorite Mario games. I don't know if it's my favorite Mario game. And therefore, since Mario games have been done better in my head, I don't know if I can give it a 10. But it's a phenomenal game.
It is just...
a game I love to death.
Objectively, it is, because it's modern, deeper, more content. Like, it's...
Right.
It's so good. But I agree with you that I don't think I could go as far as to give it a 10.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give it a score that would indicate that if I were, like, ranking my high games, like I would put the Uncharted games higher, like, at least, like, 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And probably 2 above it. But I'm still going to give Odyssey, like, a 9.8 because it's, like, so close to being perfection that the Mario series often is.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just a wonderful game. And then Breath of the Wild, because you'd give it a 10.
That's a 10 for me, yeah.
This one I would have to think critically about because I would not give it a 10.
Sure.
I would give it probably like a 9.2. Like it is about as well done as a open world playground has ever been done.
Yeah.
But having no attachment to the Zelda, or legacy, even though I know you didn't really either.
No.
Yeah, the shrines are cool, but there's so many of them.
I love it. That's my favorite part of the game.
I like that, but it's also kind of daunting.
Sure.
And I don't know, there's just going to these towns, it's like, go to this town. I'm like, and you're meeting these people, and I don't know who any of these people are. Like,
yeah.
You go into that one town next to the volcano, and people are probably like, oh, this is the town where this weird golem people... Gorons, that's what they're called.
Hey, brother.
And then I see the Gorons, and I'm like, I don't know what you are. Even though I'm sure some people were like, oh my god, it's the Gorons.
Good old Gerudo Town.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
I love the Gorons because they all talk like wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
That's like a thing. They're like, what's up, brother?
Brother.
Yeah, it's great. Anyway.
You got any more
you want to
talk about?
I'm out.
Yeah. We can call it there.
Yeah. All right.
So that's a good sample.
Yeah, a good way to see if your tastes align with ours, which our tastes almost align pretty heavily.
In certain ways they diverge, but...
Sure, yeah.
Well, Tanner, do you have a recommendation for this week?
My recommendation is the game I've been playing, NBA 2K. I didn't talk a lot about it at the top, but I read some weird stuff on 2K online before I bought it. I was like, do people like this one? What's the feeling? And I think the best way to do sports games is buy them maybe every other year or just when you really have the itch for it. Because people were complaining a lot about 2K21 in ways that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, so I understand that some people live in those games and they know the most finite details. But to me, the game looks great. You love the look of the floor.
The scuff marks.
Yeah, it looks very good. The game looks great on PS5. I like a lot of the sort of movement changes they've made where you can, like, it's not a thing you do implicitly, or it's not a thing you do intentionally, but it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
With like how you plant your feet, and you're not sliding all over the place anymore. And they made some really cool adjustments. I understand why people don't like some of those adjustments because it does kind of slow things down, makes defense more of a thing. But I enjoy some of the changes they made, and I just love both the My Player system and the system where you get a bunch of cards and you get to assemble these crazy, you know, hybrids of the past and now teams. It's the perfect. To me, 2K are the best sports games going right now, and I really like this one.
All right. Well, my rec is going to be not a game because all I've been playing is Returnal, and all I will be probably playing for the next week is Returnal.
Yeah.
So mine's just going to be something funny. And it's not the funny thing I alluded to earlier, which was Mega Man by Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
This is actually more related.
Okay.
This is a subreddit.
All right.
And it's the Dark Souls memes subreddit.
Okay, I've seen some of these.
I love this subreddit. It is hilarious. Like, if you have any knowledge of Dark Souls lore,
yeah,
this is rib-sticking humor on this thing. Like, oh my gosh, it's so good. There's one that I will allude to, but you'll know the one that's like, I want to continue the Age of Fire, but after, like, a sexual act.
Right.
Oh my gosh. The first time I saw that, like, I busted laughing.
A nut. What was the one I sent you that was like Obama, and he was like, oh,
oh, the fertile pygmy, so easily forgotten.
He was just like, oh, I left my house, but I forgot. Oh no.
Oh, the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten.
That killed me for some reason.
And if you're not real deep into some Dark Souls lore, you don't know what that's talking about. You probably don't even know what that's talking about.
It just made me laugh.
Just the phrase is kind of inherently funny. Oh man, that was fun.
It was fun.
Next week will be episode 10.
That's true.
Maybe we'll do something special.
Yeah.
You never know.
Who knows? But we have a week to think about it.
We got a week to think about it, and then we just got a few more weeks until E3, which will be special.
Hell yeah.
So looking forward to that. But until then,